All right, Remi, welcome to the Sipping Point.
Thank you, Lori.
So excited. Everyone heard about your impressive background, and it just has to be a dream to be a CEO at a major winery here in the US and, of course, in Carneros nonetheless. How did you come to the wine business? What was it? Because I know you studied molecular biology. Whoa, that is super impressive. How did you go from that to wanting to be in the wine business?
Well, while I was an undergrad at UC Berkeley studying molecular biology, I really was attracted to and intrigued by plant biology and plant science. And I wound up working in a plant and mycology, like basically the study of fungi lab. And really connecting with more of the professors in that area. And one of them actually had suggested that I maybe should go into wine, but I hadn't really thought about it as a career. I fell in love with the Bay Area and I really wanted to stay in the Bay Area for grad school. And so I was looking at different programs and I saw that UC Davis has this program to study viticulture and enology. And I thought, wow, first of all, I thought, what is that? and and then when I looked it up and learned, and it was the study of and science of grape growing and the study and science of winemaking, I thought, wow, that just encapsulates so many of my different interests from biology to chemistry to agriculture to ecosystem sustainability, and then has this really fun component to it as well.
Right. Now, were you already a wine drinker at this time?
I started consuming wine at an early age, probably too early for saying on this show.
Sure.
But, with the influence of some friends' older siblings and some older friends in college, I had gotten into wine at a young age. We loved barbecuing and cooking together and enjoying wine. It's such a great beverage to have with food. And so I was familiar with wine, but I just had never really thought of it as an industry or a business. I grew up in New Jersey, and my parents really weren't wine drinkers. So it wasn't something that was really like on my table growing up.
Well, I'm a Jersey girl as well, so we're going to have to talk about that at some point. So this is really even more exciting. So I know you've worked at so many prestigious wineries throughout Carneros and Napa Valley for that matter, but you called this your dream job. Of course, you have the top position there at Domaine Carneros, but what is it about Domaine Carneros that makes this your dream job and the perfect place for you?
Well, it's only fitting that our Tete Cuvée, our top sparkling wine, is called Reve, which means the dream in French. And that wine was made to encapsulate and honor Claude Tattinger's dream of creating a California sparkling winery and his dream come true. It's our Tete Cuvée. It was created and crafted by Eileen Crane, who was the founding winemaker here, the former CEO. She was here for 33 years before she retired, and I had the amazing opportunity to take over from her. And Le Reve and so much of Domaine Carneros is, her vision and her passion. And when I was interviewing with her when she was getting ready to retire, so many of the Domaine Carneros values align with mine. On a simple level, I love bubbles, and I've always been a huge fan of Tattinger wines. The Comte de Champagne, their Tete Cuvée, has been to me the hallmark of top champagne. And so, that on that level, I was immediately drawn to the position. But there were some other really important factors. So for one, Domaine Carneros is what we call a grower producer. We grow all of our own grapes. We farm a little over 400 acres. And back in those early days when I discovered the UC Davis program for viticulture and enology, I enrolled and got my master's with a focus on the viticulture side, which is the science of
Mm.
grape growing. And I spent a large part of the first decade of my career working in the vineyards, working in the field. And so to be part of a winery that has an estate grown vineyard program with great sustainability initiatives is really important to me. Obviously, the fundamental values of female leadership, which not only did the Tattingers hire Eileen Crane in 1987, but Vitaly Tattinger is currently the president of Tattinger. And so that value of diversity and equity and women leadership was something that really resonated with me. And then again, of course, the excellence in sparkling wine. We have two winemakers, Zach Miller, who focuses on the sparkling program, and TJ Evans, who focuses on the Pinot Noir program. But their standards of excellence are so high, and both of them have been with the winery since 2008. A lot of overlap with Eileen and just a lot of institutional knowledge in terms of our winemaking and our style.
I love that. And we're going to get to a little bit more about your sustainability efforts and your solar efforts. But since you brought up bubbles and we have these bubbles right in front of us, it's really hard to wait any longer. So let's talk about the rosé sparkling wine. Of course, officially we can't call it champagne, even though you have this great champagne house behind your efforts. But tell me a little bit more about this. It seems to have a fun story about the paramour of Louis XV, who introduced champagne to Versailles. But tell me a little bit more about this. It's just delicious, and I'm so excited to hear more.
Well, you have done your homework and you know a little bit about Madame de Pompadour then. So Eileen named our Brut Rosé the Cuvée de la Pompadour after Madame de Pompadour because she not only was a courtesan of Louis XV, but she's the woman who was highly credited with bringing champagne to the court of Versailles. And so that's something that all of us can celebrate moving forward. She was also a woman who brought a lot of arts, things like mosaic and tapestry, and a lot of really amazing and cutting edge philosophical discourse into the court at the time. She was a controversial figure back in the day, but she's very celebrated these days for all of her contributions. So Eileen thought it was a fitting name for our Brut Rosé, which is a really fun and playful rosé, but actually a little bit more serious than you think. It is a Brut Rosé, meaning it's a dry sparkling wine. It's not any sweeter than our regular Brut Cuvée, and it has about 40% Chardonnay in it. So the color component comes from a little bit of skin contact with the Pinot Noir, but there is a component of Chardonnay that gives the wine a little bit of structure, some seriousness, some longevity, in addition to the playful fruitiness that the Pinot Noir with the skin contact imparts on the wine.
And it's so elegant. A lot of times when I'm doing wine classes or speaking with people about sparkling wine, though, sort of laugh about the tiny bubbles because I remember being forced to watch, Lawrence Welk when I was a kid with my grandparents. But they're so integrated to the wine. It's so elegant and just dissolves, if that's the right word I want to say here, on your palate. And to me, that's such a good sign of the integration of the bubbles to the wine. And I know that at your winery, at least 3 years, these wines age, even though it's not required to be aged in bottle for 3 years, but that's something you invest in. Do you think that's part of the elegance of the integration of all this?
Yeah, so thank you for noticing. There are a few factors. One is that we work with a proprietary yeast to do the second fermentation. So the hallmark of the best sparkling wines of the world is the traditional method process that was created and used in champagne, which has the secondary fermentation occur in every individual bottle. And we use a special yeast for the tirage process, which was curated by Eileen with the help of the Tattinger family back in the day, that we keep like locked up at a secret lab,
Ooh.
have flown up to us at the beginning of tirage in the spring, which is coming up here. And then we cultivate and curate this yeast, and we put a little bit of it into the wine when we go down to bottle for the tirage. This particular yeast was selected not only for its beautiful flavor, so the extended aging in the bottle gives the wine the complexity and the creaminess that we all love with the best sparkling wines in the world, but it also really gives this delicate mousse or these really like fine textural bubbles. And we like to say here at Domaine Carneros that tiny bubbles means tiny troubles. So hopefully our bubbles help make your troubles go away.
I love that. Okay, new saying that I got to put in the mix. Tiny bubbles, tiny troubles. Perfect. And I love that, a lot of people think, ooh, there's Pinot Noir, mostly Pinot Noir in here with the Chardonnay 60/40, I believe is what I had read.
Mhm.
And it's pink, but not red. How do we achieve that? So talk a little bit about, I believe the skin contact is the way that you achieve this beautiful pink color here. A
Yeah.
lot of people think that the juice from Pinot Noir must be red. So just give people a little idea of how you achieve this beautiful, really pale salmon color that I'm seeing here.
That's something that is a fun component of all sparkling wines and champagnes that often are made from Pinot Noir. In Champagne, there's three commonly found varieties: Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, both of which are red grapes, and Chardonnay, which is a white grape. When we make sparkling wine in the traditional method, what we do is we start making wine like we were making white wine. So when the grapes come into the winery, Traditional red wines are fermented with the whole berry in the tank. So all the skins, the seeds to get the tannin and color from the skins into the wine, extracted into the wine. When you're making white wine, you don't really want the tannin from the seeds and the skins. And so you press the juice off of the berries right away and you put that into a tank. And so with red grapes like Pinot Noir, the flesh of the berry is clear. And so if you press the grapes right away, you can get the clear juice and put it in the tank and make a white wine. In fact, one of our kind of little secrets at the winery is that we make a white Pinot Noir, a still white wine made from Pinot Noir. And we do that by pressing the grapes right away, extracting them from the skin and making this clear wine. For the rosé, what we used to do, which is very common in Champagne, is put a little bit of Pinot Noir red wine into the blend. What we found in California, and particularly for our wines, we're going for really like elegant, high acid, mineral driven wine, and that was giving too much fruitiness to the wine. So Zach and Eileen worked on it, that they decided that a few days of skin contact on a portion of the Pinot Noir that goes into the blend will give it a really delicate pink color. And then once it goes through the second fermentation in the bottle, it turns even more kind of like a lighter salmon color. And it's just really beautiful. And it imparts just the right amount of fruitiness, but while giving the wine still has some like gravitas to it.
I love that. There's a lot of news in the wine industry about people drinking less, some people not drinking at all. But right here in this glass, we have two of the hottest categories that seem to still be on fire in wine, right? Rosé and sparkling wine. And sparkling wine and rosé seem to still be growing. Do you see that at the winery as well? I mean, I think some of these reports are a little overdone these days. People are still loving champagne and sparkling wine and wines like this. So I think this is really a great place to be right now.
Yeah, I think it's been really exciting to see in the last 5 or 10 years how people are really getting more comfortable with having sparkling wine outside of just special occasions. And they understand really how well sparkling wine and high acid driven wines pair with a wide range of food. And so I think those are some of the reasons why sparkling wine is really growing in terms of its visibility and its success in the marketplace, especially while the overall wine industry is experiencing a little bit of a correction or a slowing demand. I am similar to you, Lori, that I have really positive views. Wines is an ancient beverage. It's made from a natural product, often using very sustainable techniques. And it's a really great choice, especially for young consumers who really believe in like the brand ethos of a business that they want to support. So many wineries that I know are doing things positive. They're adding a positive contribution to the environment in their vineyards and through their farming techniques. So I think, high acid driven wines, lower alcohol wines really are resonating with the younger consumer. And that's what we're bringing to you with this sparkling rosé.
It's absolutely delicious. And you mentioned something that was the next thing I wanted to speak to you about is sustainability. And so I think younger consumers, even, consumers in many different groups now are really looking, and really just the whole country, looking to eat and drink things that have less additives, that are more natural, that we are more farm to table, if you will. And certainly wine fits that bill if done right, but also the idea of the environment and the sustainability, and being eco-friendly, or however you term that. I know that's a huge focus for you across your career, but certainly for you at Domaine Carneros. So if people have heard this term sustainability, but they're like, what does that really mean? Give us some great examples, because I know you have so many there of, why people can feel so good about uncorking a bottle of the Domaine Carneros Rosé sparkling wine.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was another factor that really drew me to the winery, was the strong value that the winery had from its inception on living lightly on the land. And I think that that's one of the ways, just we believe that we produce the best wines through healthy vines, through healthy land and healthy people. And so that's really built into our DNA here at Domaine Carneros. When I started, it was really interesting to learn that Domaine Carneros was one of the very first wineries that invested in solar technology. So in 2003, Domaine Carneros built what was considered the largest solar array of any winery in the world at its time.
Wow.
And right around the time that I started, we were coming off of having had an earthquake in Napa Valley in 2014. We had fires here in 2017. I started in the summer of 2020 during COVID, and we realized that resiliency was another important thing. And so our team had started looking into what's now called a solar microgrid. So we expanded in 2023 our solar. We like to say we amped up our commitment to solar energy
Nice.
by doubling our generation capacity, but connecting the whole thing to a battery, which can store excess energy that's generated during the day. And we can use it during peak operation hours, like early morning startup or late evening peak production, peak times, and really, really help us with energy savings. But also we can operate as an island. So we can use our stored energy to operate if there's a power outage, like there have been so
Wow.
many with the natural disasters that we're experiencing in Northern California. So we were really excited. That was one big accomplishment in our sustainability program. We have many others, like how we handle and reuse and recycle our water. We reuse and recycle our packaging materials. And then we have a lot of really cool employee engagement and employee advancement techniques that we engage in here for developing our team. So those are
That's awesome.
some examples. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty impressive, especially being one of the first to do that in the world. Really shows the commitment, and you guys build on that every year. And of course, people, with Tettinger behind you, and Domaine Carneros has been sort of thought of as a sparkling wine house, if you will. I know we both have your Pinot Noir as well here. So maybe this is a good time to talk a little bit about the fact that you also, well, you make white Pinot Noir. So I know you make white wine too, but the fact that you're making red wine from the estate grown Pinot Noir that you have. So let's talk a little bit more about your red wine program.
Yes. So we are enjoying the estate Pinot Noir, which our winemaker TJ likes to say is a mosaic of the Carneros region. We pull from our favorite blocks from all 6 of our vineyards. We have 3 on the Napa side, 3 on the Sonoma side in Carneros. We've got over 20 different clonal selections planted. So there's a lot for him to work with, and he gets to pick and choose. And this is what he believes is a great mosaic of the Carneros terroir. It's a great example of that kind of cherry berry characteristic that we love in Pinot Noir, but with a good amount of earthiness and spice, giving it lots of complexity. And I think it's a great representation of the region. And kind of the origin story is pretty funny. Eileen had an assistant winemaker here, and they were making a couple barrels of Pinot Noir for fun for the employees and for holiday parties. And Claude Tattinger came by and he noticed the barrels. We don't use any barrels to age our sparkling wine. We really believe in the purity of the fruit and the traditional method process that we talked about. So he was surprised to see a few barrels. And Eileen mentioned, yeah, we make a couple barrels of Pinot Noir. So he asked to taste it, and he loved the wine so much that he said, we need to make more of this. This is so good. And I want to bring this to France. And so back in the day when the family owned the Hotel de Crillon, they were importing Carneros Pinot Noir to Paris, and people were enjoying our Pinot Noir all the way across the world at that time. And over time, we've grown the program, and now we make single vineyard and single clonal Pinot Noirs. And we really enjoy playing with the program and creating new offerings for our members and repeat guests to the winery.
Yeah, and it's very silky. It has this wonderful mouthfeel to it, like velvet or something, if that's the right word I'm looking for. So one of the, I think, great things that I like to look at for when I'm looking for wines is the fact that they're estate grown. You're really controlling all of the growing and the process, I guess, from one end to the other, as well as your sustainability efforts. I feel like consumers, it can be confusing sometimes when they have a wall of wines at, at their wine store or wherever they might be shopping. What things can people look for on the bottle or while they're shopping? I mean, of course, if they're listening, now they know Domaine Carneros and your great values and the things that you're doing. But if you're shopping and maybe you come across wines that you are not familiar with, what are you looking for on the bottle or, to really know that you're getting wine of that caliber?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that you could see on the bottle with sparkling wine. A lot of times vintage dated wine is a hallmark of quality. If it says that it was produced in the traditional method or what we used to call méthode champenoise, but like to reserve that title for the champenoise, the folks in Champagne that are using that traditional method. Like you mentioned, estate grown, I think, is a really important hallmark that shows you're controlling the quality of the grapes and the style and sustainability behind the farming. Some producers, we've got 4 different sustainability certifications, but we don't necessarily put it on our labels.
Okay.
So I think for me, things that I would recommend is going with your trusted purveyors, whether it's a restaurant and a wine bar that you really love or a retail shop in your neighborhood that you frequent. Those people are kind of like our spokespeople, right? They're the ones that can say,
Right.
you got to try the Domaine Carneros, or you like this, I think you'll love this wine, or these guys are super sustainable. I got to go to a seminar, or I listened to Lori's podcast and I learned that they do all these great techniques. And so I think for me, a lot of wine is word of mouth. It's like your friends telling you what's going on, what's cool, what they've had, where they've been visiting, and things like that. And so I see your point. Like it could be a little bit confusing, and that's why it's fun to be able to connect with wines and brands by visiting regions, listening to the podcast, and learning from like the people you trust in terms of your favorite wine bartender or wine retailer.
Totally agree. So with this, I, of course, in the beginning, before I brought you on, I gave your amazing background, which is impressive and inspiring to be a CEO at a major wine house here in the US. So if there are women listening who love wine and are thinking maybe they're already in the wine business, maybe they're just thinking about getting into the wine business, do you have any advice for them, where to start? How to
Yeah.
maybe sort of chart a course to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much more opportunity for people now to get into the wine industry, which is great. There's educational programs, places like UC Davis, Cal Poly, more universities are creating that. A lot of local wine bars are creating educational opportunities, which I think is fun and unique ways to engage. They're like getting a part-time job working at a local wine shop. You could really learn a lot about wine, volunteering to do a harvest, working a harvest. That's a lot of ways people get into the production side of wine business. And I think my advice for people in general is the same for all genders, all people. It's obviously to work really hard. The wine business is not easy. You really have to love what you're doing. It is a labor of love. Farming is hard. Winemaking is challenging. Every year is different, so it keeps it exciting, but it is truly a labor of love. I think it's important to work hard. I think it's important to be willing to help out of your areas of responsibility. That's something that I think probably goes for most industries and most careers, but the willingness to help, because then you'll have an opportunity to learn. So early in my career, even though I was a viticulturist and vineyard manager, I helped create content for the website. I helped host trade guests from out of town. I even went to other states and markets to talk passionately about what we do and help sell wine and educate people on our sustainable practices, the quality of wines we made, how we make the wines, how we grow the grapes. So being willing to kind of go outside of your area of expertise and your box and help really think broadly about your business and what the business needs, and being willing to help and not live in just your little silo. And then I would say, one other thing that's just really important is advocating for yourself. Nobody ever looks down on you, even though you think, I might be intimidated to go up to that person, that the board member or the president or the CEO. What if they, don't agree, or what if they shoot me down? Well, there's no reason to not do it. I think in most cases you'll be respected for knowing your worth, knowing your position, knowing what you can contribute, and not in like an entitled way, but in a, hey, this is what I believe that I do. This is how I feel like I've contributed. This is where, I see myself growing in the industry. Is that something that can align with growth within this company? And you really want the company that you work for to work for you. You want it to be a good fit where you feel inspired, you feel part of a team, and you feel like there's opportunity for growth if you want it.
Love that. And of course, now you've inspired me to get out there to the winery any next time I'm in the area, or maybe I just need to make a trip to get out there. But if people do come out and visit you there at the winery, just give us an idea of the different kinds of things people could do when they're visiting. I'm sure you have a standard, tasting room experience, but I'm sure you also have some other, everybody's about the wine experiences now. They want to experience wine in different ways. What would be something you suggest there at the winery?
Well, we have a really fun program that we call Bubbles and Bites, and that is a food pairing with four of our different wines that is really fun. It features different cuisines from around the world and it changes seasonally. So right now we're featuring a coastal Mediterranean cuisine, but actually on Monday, a fun part of my job is that I get to work with the culinary team here. We're going to do some taste testing. I think we're developing a Peruvian style menu for the next release. So we're really excited about that. And that changes seasonally. So you can come back, and we've done Mexico, we've done Morocco, we've done different, Southeast Asian. So different cuisines from around the world. And it really showcases the versatility of sparkling wine. And it's a fun and engaging experience because we make recommendations of which of the wines in the flight we think pair the best with the particular bite. But also we encourage everybody to taste things with the other wines as well and see what they like and what their preferences are. So it's a really fun and engaging way to showcase the versatility of sparkling wine, to learn a little bit and eat some delicious food.
I love that idea because there a lot of times in the beginning when I first started studying wine, I thought there was just going to be a chart and I was just going to memorize this wine with that food and I'd be done with it. But really, there's more than one great wine for every dish, and every wine can have multiple partners, if you will. And recently, I had Karen McNeil on, and we were talking about share and pair Sundays, and she said sometimes you just want the wine that you're in the mood for, and you have it with the food that you're in the mood for. So we don't have to overthink it all the time. But I do love when you go to a winery experience. Bubbles and Bites sounds right up my alley, where you've kind of put these together. It just gives you an idea of what it can be. And sometimes it's good to taste a wine with the bite that doesn't work, so you can kind of see, wow, I didn't even realize how much that shined because of the two together. Because it really, I think wine's part of the recipe of your meal. So I appreciate you have that experience there. All right, one more question, because I know I've had you here for a little bit, but if you are not drinking your own wine, what wines what region are you, kind of going to, or what do you kind of go, attracted to wine wise if you're not drinking your own?
Well, I do drink a lot of champagne, so I think that gave me a little edge up when I was interviewing with the Tattinger family. I was during the pandemic, so we were online, and I was going into my cellar and bringing out bottles of their wine, and I told them I had visited the region, and so hopefully that gave me a little bit of an edge up during the interview process.
I bet.
So definitely a lot of champagne, not just the Tattingers. I do like to enjoy grower producers and some of the great houses and really experience the gamut. It helps inform what we do here at the winery, and gives us some inspiration. I also really love like white Burgundy, drinking Chablis and Bourgogne Blanc. Like the accessible tiers of white Burgundy is probably what we drink with the most frequency at my house outside of champagne.
Oh, that sounds great. Wonderful. I'm currently in an obsession with the Rhone Valley, both white and red. So I'm kind of rediscovering, outside of Côte d'Rône, but some of the crew, Gigondas and Baccarat and those sorts of things. So it's fun. Just kind of, I make it a New Year's resolution, easy to keep versus some of the ones that aren't. But if people want to find out more about you and your background, the stuff going on at the winery, where should they first go?
I think the best is domainecarneros.com. We've got a great blog where we share some recipes from our Bubbles and Bites. We share about new releases. We just released the Crane Cuvée, a wine that honors Eileen. We released that this past Saturday for International Women's Day. And it's just an opportunity for us to share with you what we're doing in terms of sustainability, in terms of winemaking, and really get to connect with you. Also, our Instagram and Facebook are other great places to connect with us. So hopefully we'll see you there. And most importantly, we'd love to see you on the beautiful terrace this coming spring or summer, enjoying some bubbles with us.
Love that. Well, Remi, thank you so much for coming on the Sipping Point. You are inspiring. The wines are delicious. And I just want to say cheers.
Cheers to you. Thank you for your inspiration.
Thank you.